Yes, plenty. We have a 17-year-old, so a high school senior girl. And then from my first marriage, I have three grown kids. So I have two
Yeah.
boys and a girl. So I have three girls, and then the two boys are the oldest, which I recommend that's the best way to do it. If you're going to have boys, have them be the oldest, just because the girls are going to be more mature anyway. So, you want your stress level or, behavior level, reasonability level to just go up as you have more kids, not down. And that was my experience. Doesn't mean that it's stress free, mind you, but
Yeah.
it was a good plan.
That, with that much time between them too, like you had
Yeah.
to learn, right? You as a dad had to you had to dial in some things, and so you had to dial in some different strategies and change with the times
Yes.
as well with that gap that you have
That's
there.
right. What I did was I built in enough years in between for myself to mature. The closest is between the two oldest boys, who are like a year and a half apart, almost 2 years apart, and then the daughter, who's maybe 3 years apart from that. And then there's an 11-year gap because of divorce and remarriage and all of that, and then a 7-year gap between the 17-year-old and the 10-year-old. Um, and that's it. And the dogs are 4 and 1, but that
Yeah.
didn't have any effect on us in terms of the actual gestation period and the birthing of them. They were born without any assistance from us.
That's right. Oh man, that's cool, man. It's just that I'm excited to learn more about what you do. Let me tell everyone who I'm working with
Sure.
today. Today we're with Hersh Rephun, a holistic brand therapist, stand-up comic, and creative force with over 20 years in brand strategy. After personal evolution that brought second chances into both comedy and marriage, Hersh now empowers spiritual and conscious entrepreneurs to build personal brands that are heart-centered and fully aligned. I am excited to learn more about that. I have a passion for a little stand-up comedy. I have probably nowhere near the reps that you do, but I enjoy Hirsch. I enjoy speaking, and one of the places that I found that I can get reps and find comfort on the stage is doing stand-up and
Yeah.
open mic nights. And I was telling someone today I was encouraging them. I'm like, hey, they do a little event here locally once a month. It's open mic. It's really good. I go, listen, if you want to go speak, I said, those lights get hot. And I said, if you get up in front of people and you're not used to that, I said, just going and getting some reps and talking on a stage it will help your confidence level, because the first time you get up in front of that professional audience is your time to learn that those lights are hot, they're very bright, and you can't see as well as your
Yeah.
presentations or
It,
whatever. So it's and man, I'll tell you this real quick, and then I'm gonna kick it to you. Because this is your podcast, not mine. But I want to tell you a funny story because you're into comedy. I did Toastmasters,
oh,
and
okay.
have you ever did
No,
Toastmasters?
I have not, but I'm familiar with it.
More formal setting. They count ahs and ums and ha's, all the filler words. They will absolutely, folks, if you're into public speaking or you're trying to find your niche, Toastmasters is a great place to start. They help you kind of mold that signature speech that you're looking for. I think I told someone they were just way too proper for me.
Yeah.
So comedy and just me kind of being a little bit of a cut up is being able to mesh those two together is kind of what I found was comedy. Toastmasters frowns when you cuss. Comedy, they kind of you can get a laugh if you place it at the right spot.
Yeah,
So
Jeff, I think that while I never made a concerted effort to avoid Toastmasters, I got that sense, that they were too formal for me. And at the time, during my advertising and branding career, when it came to being on stage, I was more comfortable doing stand up. And
yeah,
specifically for the reason that I only had one job: make people laugh, make the audience laugh. Now, the rule of reading the room, I think, plays across both discipline.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're going to do a speech, to do a keynote. You're going to want to know who the crowd is too. You're going to want to read the room, what's their mood, what's the time of day, all of those things. But with stand up, you're going out with the purpose of making them laugh. And I also maintain the rule is, first do no harm, right? Same as the
Yeah.
Hippocratic oath. You're not there to insult them, to upset them, to challenge them really in terms of, certainly in a way that would make them uncomfortable. And that holds true no matter who your audience is. But with stand up, everybody talks about killing, right? You want to go up and kill. Oh, I slayed them. They couldn't. In a way, you are trying to do that with stand up. With a keynote, it's a much more refined objective. You're trying to inform, you're trying to elevate, you're trying to inspire. You want their respect, and you want them to, it's all about giving. And I think with
Yeah.
stand up, you're it's also about giving, but it's about, an ass kicking more than it is give them inspiration.
One of the things I think you can always ask any audience or any promoter or whatever it might be, comedy, the cool thing in open mic is it is the guy, like we have our host, LA, he gets was like, you might not laugh tonight, you might end up crying, you might not hear a joke, this is where people just come to refine their craft. It might be very spotty, but and it's a safe space, and he puts that
Yeah,
out there to
yeah,
everyone. Like, this is not a place to come and boo. This you might and then um so it's all walks of life. The people that they're listen, man. I watch some guys that probably one guy just like, I just want to go talk. I just want to go. And so it was like a really cool thing. But when you go to in that professional setting is one of the things that I have learned over the years, and it's a great way to approach it, is when I'm done, how do you want your audience to feel?
right.
You want them happy? Do you want emotion? Are you looking for inspiration or all those things that you can put in there? It's just like when I'm said and done, because you work, I can take my story down a path where you're gonna need a box of tissues. I can take my story down a path to where we're all gonna be up just celebrating, and jumping. So those are, I think those are always valid to speak to what you're talking about on reading the room.
Yeah, yeah, it's true because, and I love the way you put that. Where do you want to leave them? Like, where do you want to? Because this is the thing that's true also of any medium. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Even when we're doing a podcast, we can meander, we can go down this road or that road or whatever, but we kind of want to end up someplace. Thing that I love about podcasting is that you don't have to know where that place is, but as you approach it, as you get there, sometimes there are some really fun surprises. Whereas stand up, the two things that we always think of before we go on is what am I opening with and what am I closing with, and it usually doesn't change. Those are the anchors for me anyway. It's like, if I know what I used to experiment at open mics and stuff with going on and not knowing what I was gonna open with, and that can be fun as an exercise, but I wouldn't do that to a paying audience. I wouldn't have them roll the dice on what I'm going to open with. Uh, but you learn that. It's learned. It's a learned skill. We have certain innate abilities, but it's really about skill and learning as you go.
You know what other industry has the opening and they know the opener and the closer?
Yeah.
Pro wrestling.
Oh, okay.
Pro wrestling, they know their opening move and they know their finishing move. Everything in the middle is your, especially your good ones. Now it's very like they work hard to practice and rehearse and all those things. But I had an old school wrestling back in your 80s and
Yeah.
when 70s and 80s. That's how they would open up, because you might be wrestling someone you never met before at a venue, and you would do first move. First move, last move, and all moves work off the left side of the body.
Oh, wow.
So you
Okay.
can't. So if me and you just walk into the ring, you and I should be able to work for 3 to 5 minutes just off of those things, and then a little lock up. And you're like, all right, you take it from here,
Yeah,
and then and when you get confused, like when I fall and you go to pick me up, everything starts on the left side. That way, it's not.
I get it. No, that's great. Like
Yeah,
dancing.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah.
And I love what I love about wrestling is the theatrical element and the suspension of disbelief. Like that for me is what I love about movies. It's what I love about all kinds of theater is that, for that time that you're watching it, you're just engaged in that story, in that reality. And it does you have to kind of let go and let yourself
Yeah.
go. And that's a good way to, just escape and enjoy.
What about these days, man? What's a day in Hersh's life? Kind of what's a day look like for you these days on your projects and what you're working on?
Yeah, well, I get in the ring around 6 a.m.
Right.
I get up around 5:30. I get up around 5:30 in the morning because I'm an early bird, and I took a peak performance class several years ago, and one of the things that it brought out in me is this ability to really focus in the morning and get a lot done. So I do my quiet work in the morning. If I have to write something, an article or a proposal or a report or something for, something I'm doing that really requires attention, I like to do it in the morning when it's quiet. And usually I write at night as well. And then I'll use the morning to review because I'll be fresh and I'll be focused. And if I thought it was brilliant last night and I read it this morning and it's crap, I'll know, you know. Um, and then my daughters go to school, so usually around a quarter to 7 or so, I'll get involved in that process, and that's a good break because I've now been working for a solid hour or something, and it'll be about getting them off to school, the dogs, and my wife will sometimes go to her office, which is about an hour away. Sometimes she'll work from home. Um, but at that point, there's a little break, and that's when I got to get some exercise, and I gotta, go to the gym, and I do a little kickboxing, and I like that because it's the only time our mind isn't really active. Like we're not
Nope.
thinking. We may be thinking in the back of our head about stuff, but I'm literally not. I'm not on a device. I'm not listening even to music. I'm just focusing. The music is going, but I'm just focusing on the workout, and that's really puts my head in the right place. um, and I do a lot of podcast recordings on Mondays and Tuesdays. I record for my own podcast, and I usually put guesting in there too, unless the host is prefers a different day or time. But I can do those at any time. Like I light up when I'm being interviewed or interviewing, and that's a fun thing to do any time of day or in the evening even. And I don't like do a lot of business meetings in the evening, but I'll do recordings. Sometimes
Yeah.
we're working with someone who's in another country, and they could be in Australia. It could be morning for them. Um, so I love that. I love talking to new people every day, and then a lot of client interactions, helping people with these brand builds, that are really just getting down and dirty with their story. A lot of us, we can't see the back of our own heads, so we don't cut our own hair, but we know we have a story. We just we aren't our own audience. We need an audience with a perspective and somebody that can say, okay, this stuff is good. This is good stuff. Maybe you want to try this, maybe you want to try that. And I love the being almost like a chef with people's stories and brands and elements and strategy. That's why I say strategy is like it's at least half the battle, because a good story is great, but like, where does it go? Who hears it? Who's the audience? You know, like I mentioned, reading the audience. Well, who's your audience? If you're automotive, expert, consultant, who knows what, who's the audience? Who are the enthusiasts, and who are you helping, and what do they like to hear? What do they want to hear? So it's about the ear and the voice. Those are really the two big elements, I think.
When this gets overlooked a lot, Hirsch.
Yeah.
Folks are like, I'm going to open up and I'm going to sell to everyone. Who's your customer?
Right.
Everyone.
Right.
I
Right.
want everyone, everybody. I'm looking for I'm an automotive guy. If you got a car, I'm your guy. And we learn over time that maybe sometimes that's not the case.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that then you need to dial that in. What kind of how does that look like for you, or do you have an approach that you try to work with, or
I
I think Hirsch, what I think to kick that off too is like, what's this client experiencing that may be coming to you? I'd love to hear kind of that. Oh, like I some all right. So help me out here. Do they find you before? I hope some folks do. Do they find you when they've dug this massive hole and they're like, you know what? I'm still over here digging. And I found Hirsch. Or what does that look like?
I think what it is an interesting question, Jeff, because what it looks like, I often tell people, one of the things that makes my job a little easier is that people know when they need my help. Now,
Mm,
they may have challenges that make it hard to act at that moment. Maybe they did just hire somebody and work with somebody and spend a whole bunch of money, and now they got to fix it. It didn't really quite work out. That person didn't quite get them. This is an important, I think what I do is definitely very important to the client. So they don't make that decision, lightly. And I respect that. And I respect that they got to take a little time to process it. Um, but quite often, they know deep down that there's something they want to achieve. They know that their image, their language, their content, their whole thing that they're putting out is key in trying to accomplish that thing. Maybe they want to go a new direction. Maybe they were to use the automotive analogy, maybe they were a mechanic and then owned their own shop, and now they want to get out there and talk to consumers about the automotive industry. Well, that's a very different audience, a very different thing than just having a shop, in Virginia, let's say. So now they want to go international with their image. They want to write a book, but they haven't done it yet. They want to do a podcast, but they haven't done it yet. Or they want to change their podcast. They want to rebrand their podcast. Could be anything. Everybody's got different things. But over the course of my career, I've done all these things: started podcasts, written book, written entertainment screenplays and movies and stand up, and I've been in communication and corporate communication. So really, they know that there's a thing they want to do, but they just don't know how. And I often say that they'll have an embarrassment of riches. Like, you'll have a couple degrees, a couple of lists you've been on. You could call yourself Title A, Title B, or Title C. You like to do this. You do volunteer work at a certain. It's like a whole LinkedIn profile, but how do you convey that in one sentence or one name or one hit? And I think that's my sweet spot, is taking all the pieces and putting them into the right framework for the audience you want to reach. And that's when they feel that those pieces are all over the place, and I can tell that those pieces are all over the place, and we have a meeting of the minds. I know I can work with them, because there may be someone who has all those pieces in a mess, and they're not gonna they the type where people want to be the only one that touches their stuff, you
yeah,
know. Nobody else
my
can
stuff.
touch my stuff, right? um and I get that, I respect it, but they have that attitude. They're like, well, I can write, I can do this, I can do that, and I'll always tell them, yeah, you can write. In fact, I part of my program is to help the client learn how to use their brand language impactfully, so that they can write or their team can write. They don't need to go to an outside source every time they want to send an email. It's just not practical. you know Learn your brand language. So I'm all for empowering them, but there are people that are like, okay, I don't they ask your advice and then they tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah. Assholes. Those are assholes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
An asshole is someone who asks your advice but never takes it.
Yep, that's right.
Well, how did I wanted to ask you one thing? I have actually two that I was going to build off of there, but how you incorporate the word holistic, and that's captivating to me because it's like, anybody. I have friends that are brand experts or brand builders and brand, but then when you throw, hey, holistic brand building, that makes the water taste a little different for me. Like, wait a minute, he's got some magic dust, he's got the water, he's got the thing. But then you walked in, you took that holistic approach somewhere, but how did this all start for
Yeah,
you? And why was it important for you to insert that word holistic in there? Because that's captivating to me.
thank you, thank you. Well, and let me first say that I'm a big advocate for trying to find a way to look at and frame what you do in its most unique light. So, in other words, what is it about what you do that's truly unique? The reason the word holistic really just kind of struck me was that I had taken a journey that was very holistic, that was about my entire life, trying to look at my whole self and figure out, what do I want to do professionally. I didn't start meditating, interestingly, because I wanted to explore my inner psyche or anything like that, or anything. I started it because was trying to be more efficient with my time, and I was trying to regulate my mind a little bit and become more efficient and effective as a professional. And then I realized, oh wow, this is amazing. I'm opening up a whole world of insight into my life and into my visions and all of that. But the improvements that I made in my life improved my business, sleep schedule, all these things that improve your business, they improve your life. And so I believe, like, my book is called Selling the Truth, a memoir, which is my word for semi memoir, because it's kind of a memoir, but only stories that have to do with business. A memoir with insights for life and business, because I don't consider myself a business guru. I just have an approach that encompasses life and business in such a way that you can feel good about both. And I believe if you feel bad about one, the other one's going to suffer. So people can say I have a great life, but my business sucks, or they can say I have a great business, but my life sucks. But probably both of them suck on some level, you
Yeah,
know?
that's that's a great way to approach that, and it's similar to some of the stuff I work with on helping cultivate on the leadership side
Mm-hmm.
of some of your folks that are destined for leadership have some things they just need to put to bed,
Yeah.
and whether it's just getting right with past things, they're leading from a place of negativity sometimes, or they're apprehensive because of their and I do that 100% from experience.
Yeah.
Not everybody's experiencing what I talk about, and you're not my client, but the folks that are struggling to get there, like Jeff, I want to. I have all these skills, but they don't. I'm having a hard time getting them to see them. I'm like, because you don't know how to talk like a leader, because you're still talking over here on this other mindset type
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So, is there kind of what kind of work do you expect out of your client for that? Or what kind of like just to give us a little touch of like, hey, these are because what I tell people, I'm like, your business is going to benefit from all the work that we do. I'm going to help you with your business. I'm going to give you strategic things that you can deploy. I'm going to come alongside your team, but you and I are the work that you and I do on just the conversations that we have about, what's holding you back and some of the negative this or all those things. Your business is going to become the benefactor of all that, along with your wife, your kids, your spouse, your husband, your whatever that might be in that picture. Do you have something similar?
It's interesting that you ask because uh, I specifically tell my clients that this is a done for you service program. Um, and it is, but I also include the caveat all I need from you to do. You don't have, there's no homework, there's no assignments, there's no exercises. It really is, we talk for an hour at a time. And most of my clients, we do 9 sessions, and we have a 90-day program. So we do 9 sessions together, and some of them have they don't have the time, so they want to do sessions differently, whatever it might be. But really, I'm available to them for 9 hours for sure during this period over this time in order to attack the things that we decide we need to work on. But I'm really the one doing the work in between. And they're just sharing, they're just talking. And it's no more work than this. Um, but what they're doing subconsciously is tuning their mind into themselves. So I am asking them to just give me an hour at a time, and I'm going to come up with all the ideas, right? You don't have to come up with ideas. You don't have, but what I'm going to give you back is going to be your brand voice and strategy. So we're going to create a guide that's going to be your brand voice guide. And right before the last session, like a week, like at the end of the eighth session, you'll get this guide that 25 pages, whatever it is. It has vocabulary, it has the ideas we talked about you implementing, it has resources and some other stuff. And the takeaway is that by going through this, you're going to have a lot of clarity and a lot of direction for your brand, and none of it would have happened without you, but it was technically done for you. So I'm doing the things that you wouldn't know how to do or wouldn't want to do or would take you longer, but those are not the most important things. The most important thing is you, what comes out of your heart and what goes into my head, and then what comes out on the other side. So the IP, I say it's your personal brand is your IP. It's your intellectual property. It's you. No two outputs are going to be the same. No two strategies are going to be the same. No two vocabularies are going to be the same. And it's going to be tailored to you based on what you tell me. And it's working pretty well.
It sounds like it. And I've been a franchise owner, and to kind of speak to this to help people make sense maybe of where our is franchises is the brand message is already there. You're paying for everything that Hersh just talked about, the emotion, the conveyance, all the colors, the X, Y, or Z, the logos, everything's already done. You pay a fee and you get a done for you playbook that exists in the franchise world. And if you're able to license out of a business, you'll find that as well. Most of the businesses I work with and business owners, they have none of this.
Yeah.
And you come alongside him. So when I come along and start talking about, hey, one of the things I think you could work on and make a little better is, just your culture. Do you have core values? Do you have a mission statement? And what you talked about there is and this is where the owners that I work with sometimes get uncomfortable. So, and I'm speaking to your problem right now, owners that have worked with me that listen to my podcast, is sometimes they lack the ability to get it from here,
Mm-hmm.
brain, to mouth, to be, they have it and they know what that mission is and whatever. But so, point being, to kind of rant here for a second,
Yeah.
is this is the part, this is the magic. This is the guy that comes along, especially when you're hit to the point to where you're getting, when you're on that fifth or sixth employee, this becomes very important. You can kind of beat your way through the room on your first couple hires, or your mission statements and core values, like they're important, but man, they can overlook them really easy because everybody's busy. But as you scale, this stuff becomes super important, folks.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to create what Hersh just talked about. You are the franchise. You are the person that's coming along and doing that for your own business, and that's where the value comes. And it really, what kind of, when you're done, like, how does your clients deploy this, and where do you see that success continue?
So, as we know, AI is a huge utility, a huge tool, a huge part of the conversation. Everybody wants to make their lives easier, but they're afraid that somehow AI is going to take something from them or replace them or whatever it might be. My approach to AI is that when we create your brand voice, when we created all of your value systems, your ecosystem for your entire brand, your strategy, everything has really been thought out, worked out, and done on a very personal level. Now is the time to figure out, well, how do I get AI to work for me? So we're developing. We haven't yet announced this, but we have a developer partner who has created a uh, essentially a sales assistant for brands, for small businesses, and and we are going to plug that into the brand voice guide. And so the most natural continuation is to take what you have and apply it to your social content, apply it to your communications, apply it to your emails, your campaigns, and all of that stuff. And you don't have to use that. I also have a colleague who is a sales coach, and so quite often my clients, if they like working with me, they would like working with her, and they do some work with her, short term, long term, but to get the meetings they want with the people they want to get them. And again, it's very human centered. It's very personality centered. So that when we're trying to figure out, well, who is your ideal buyer? Who's your ideal customer, client? We're basing it not on their position or their role that they play in the company that you want to work with as a client or whatever it might be. We're building it based on your personality and the best personalities for you. So it's much more humanistic. It's much more about what's going to make you happy doing business. Who are you going to be happiest doing business with? And that way,
Yeah.
the guarantee on that end is that you're going to close business with the people you want to close business with and not have to take business from people you don't want to work with.
Yeah.
And
Big deal.
so that's
Thank you.
that's quite often the direction it goes.
That's I had to learn that. Didn't realize that not everybody was. I thought everybody would be my customer,
Right.
and then and
Right.
even in retail, right? You think everybody's going to be your customer. Do you have that mismatched product placement, or like I learned to act as a guide, and I try to teach when I'm teaching sales now. I'm like, we don't teach sales, we teach guiding.
Yeah.
I need you to be a Yoda and um, guide your client to where the best product. And sometimes it's guiding them to their car and telling them thank you for coming by, but you don't have what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not a negative thing, Jeff, either. It's like,
Used to think so, but it's not.
no, no, it's, by being honest and a lot of coaches and consultants will back this up. Being honest with your prospective client is the best thing for both of you, because if ultimately they're not going to work out, or they're not even going to buy from you, it's better to establish very early on that that fit is not there, rather than try to comport yourself into, a square going into a circle, and all of these other, twists and turns we try to take to get that client to work with us or for us, or it could come from a very good place. We want to help them. We see their need. We want to help them solve that problem. But they may not be the best match. They may not be, their external features may be exactly a good fit, but their internal way of operating is not going to work with us.
Yeah. What would you say is and I made a note here because it was curious, is like, what does a heart-centered brand look like in practice, especially for conscious entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Great question, Jeff. A heart centered practice very simply takes into account the way people are going to feel, and not just from the point of view of emotional buying, right? We know buying is emotional, right? But how are we, you, me, and whoever else is involved in this deal, let's say, how are those people going to feel when that transaction is complete? I could be selling air filters. Doesn't really matter. What do I want that customer to feel? Not so I can sell more filters, but what feeling do I want to carry around with me during the day? Have you ever seen people in? We both, I think, have experience in retail. Have some experience in retail. Have you ever seen a manager walk around a store completely twisted and angry all day?
Yeah.
and and he'll stop and talk to the customer, and he'll be nice. He'll stop and talk to I'm making it a guy because in my memory that's what it was, but he'll stop and talk, yes, how may I help you with this? Be very nice, but treat the workers like shit. And that
Yep.
and that was a lesson that I learned when I was 22, 23, working in a computer store, in New York, in Midtown, and just picking up on the fact that this guy doesn't really care. He doesn't even really care about the customer, because if he did, he would care about the employees. And so that was not a heart centered business just because he was nice to the customer. It was lacking in his consideration of how he feels during the day, because he was miserable, you know. And I once said to him, you don't you don't you want to be happy? I was saying I just wanted to be happy with the commissions we were getting, the way the pool was working, whatever it was. And he said, "Who's happy? Nobody's happy." And that was another lesson. I was like, "Wow, that's heavy," and I don't want to be part of that, for the rest of my life. I don't want to believe that. I refuse to believe that. So I think, as long-winded as that was, that's kind of what a heart-centered, uh,
Yeah.
person or business is about.
I think when you, I think to tag along with that, no matter the business, once you realize your whole goal is to help people,
Yeah.
right? Your whole goal is to help people, and once you figure out the problem that your product solves and what you're actually selling, and I did this exercise with some people recently, and I had a tire guy in there, and I was like, "What do you sell?" And he was like, "Tires." And I go, "Come on now, what do you sell?" And he's like, Goodyear. And I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
man, what do you sell? And like I'm a dad with I'm a dad with two kids, and I'm coming to buy from you. What are you selling me? And he's like, and finally we got down to that comfort and security,
Right.
and that that I know the guy who bolted those tires on, and he takes pride in what he
Right.
does, and when my wife's barreling off down the highway with my kids in there, that the pressures are right, and that if anything happens, it's not because it was at his fault,
Right.
because he did his due diligence, right?
Right.
And me and him, and then the room came to life, and the lady that sold women's clothing talked about beauty and all, and an event and a date night. So we really got deep into that. So that's kind of what we're talking about, folks, and it's the things that Hersh um, helps you figure out. But when we you had said too, we're always evolving and creating new chances. What's one recent moment where you knew that you were doing that yourself?
That I was creating a new chance for myself or for someone else.
Yeah, yeah, for yourself, someone else, whatever pops up there.
Um, I think that I recently had a discovery or a reinforcement. I don't know, because I wouldn't call it an epiphany, because I don't know that it was that it was an idea that I didn't have. But sometimes we'll have ideas that um, have occurred to us, but they haven't occurred to us in a while, and
Mm,
it feels new. And I was thinking that I this was about the beginning of the year and figuring out how many clients can I take on and still deliver the right service. And it was a well-meaning idea, but when it finally struck me that success, the outcome for the client is a win-win-win. Basically, it's they get the win, their client or audience gets a win, and from that I get the win.
yeah,
So what I had to calculate was to make sure that those two wins happen, their win and their client or audience. That's my main concern. So I realize every single one of those is huge, right? So if I can deliver, let's say, five of those a month, that's like 10 wins for me, right? That's 10 wins for me, because each one of them has two people who win, and that's huge. So even five clients was like, that would be 10 wins. So it was, when I put it through that process, it was like, that's twice the feel good thing of what I was thinking. Oh, I'm making five people happy. I'm not making five people happy. I'm making at least 10 people happy. And that's every time they work with somebody. So sometimes we minimize the exponential impact that we're having. And I think for me, that was a big opportunity, because I was like, I can do so much with a handful of people and more attention paid to each one of them. And that was
that's
that
really
was
cool.
wonderful, I think, for me.
That's a good feeling, man. When
Yeah.
it's like hitting on, go back to automotive, like we're hitting on all cylinders,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's all flowing like like you want. Um, Tell me this: who is your ideal client that you would like to connect with you, and let us know how we can get in touch with you as well. I dropped your link
Thank you.
in our live feed there. I'll make sure that we add that to our notes. But let's speak to that whoever that person is that you would love to reach out for you, that has listened to this and is like, holy crap, I have all that I need to talk to her.
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate your having me on, and it's such a pleasure to speak with you. And
Yeah.
you are very skilled and interested, and it's really great for me to be here and engage with you in that.
Well, man, I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank
I
you.
enjoy getting to know you and the work that you do. And like I said, it's you have some key words in there that I think moves the needle beyond just brand building. And when you put some of the things and knowing the intention of those words and language, man, it speaks to
Thank
me because I know where you're coming from and that approach that you're taking and just clearing out folks' noise. And
you.
so I
Yeah,
really appreciate you giving me the opportunity, brother.
I appreciate it. And that leads us to, who is the ideal client, or who can I ideally serve? And honestly, that word, that clutter and that overwhelm of, I got all this going on, but I don't know where everything goes. And quite often, so obviously those people are rarely going to be new to the business world or starting their first business. They're probably going to be like mid-career because they've reached a certain place, and maybe it's a plateau. I've said, like, sometimes people have plateau fever. They can't break it. They're stuck in one spot and they can't get to that next level, and they know it's going to take something special to get there. That's a good fit for me usually. And sometimes they can be pivoting from, like I mentioned, the guy who's gone from being a mechanic. Maybe he's going to, maybe he's bought his own shop, or maybe he wants to be a speaker about automotive, or a consultant, or all of the above. I think when they've got plates spinning, but they don't know how to make everything land without breaking, I'm a good person to talk to, because my mind takes on a strange sense of organization when I talk to people and I hear that confusion. So, but they're definitely ready for something big. I would definitely say that. Like we talked about, not everybody's your client. Not everybody's ready for something transformative or big, right? And
No.
that's another reason for that word holistic. I'm not just going in and giving them a tagline, or giving them words, or even just giving them directions. I'm giving them, as a result of them talking to me, I'm giving them a game plan. I'm giving them a point of view that's right for them, and I'm giving them a brand language. These are big things, and so they have to be ready for that.
Um, Website link,
Uh,
or yeah, do you have another way you'd like folks to connect with you?
The website is great. They can go to yesbrandbuilders.com. They can also go to hershrephun.com, which is just my name, which you'd put up there. And there they can find me uh, across any of the things that I do.
Um, it's really I like the way that we were wrapping up here, because you touched on some content that I'm working on just how we often think too small, and you think about your brand as being centered in that zip code, and I got to work. I was a local police officer. I'll tell you this quick story and we'll
Yeah.
let you go. I was a local police officer, and I got to work on what is a DEA task force, and I got to kind of go to live this Don Johnson type moment. And I remember a couple times when cases was there, I had the opportunity to really think big. Like I could think larger scale, and this little minuscule amount that I might have been able to arrest or seize at the time, or buy during operational type stuff, is I was thinking like, all right, what this is going to get me to where to the larger scale. And I was able to take these small local cases and blow them up on this national scale. And this was kind of coming to me, so I'm starting to kind of get back to talking about my old job and the cool stuff that I got to do. But I'm speaking in marketing and some lead generation in San Antonio in May. And I was just like, I was sitting here and I was going, someone kind of come in and I was like, you think it's too small. Why'd you start a business if you're going to think that small, right? We got the internet now, people. And when the person told me that, I was like, wait a minute. Hang. And so it got me going back into my old job. So I've been kind of storyboarding it out on how I want it to come together, on that really thinking, even if you're a small local drive-by business, think big. Think
Hmm.
think what Hersh is talking to you about, because your that brand impact could really get legs and go a lot of different places, and be or it could never, you could be a very, very big deal in your little small community, right? So there's all sorts of reasons why you want to lean into that. But you've definitely you have definitely gave us a lot to think about, the from the business side of it. There's folks that need your service. I work with them day in and day out. You know who you are if you're listening. Um, And there's a lot of business owners out there that are going to jump over this thinking, hey, I'm just going to get going in my business. And you will come back to visit this in due time.
Right.
So make sure that you bookmark this episode and bookmark Hersh's website, because there will come a point in time when you're going to need his service, and he's definitely someone who's qualified to guide you through branding and your brand building process, even if you think it's too late. So definitely make sure you take advantage of it. Appreciate you being with us today, brother. I'm glad I got to meet you, and I hope this is just conversation one of many that you and I get to have.
Amen, Jeff. I look forward to it.